Fisker Automotive is trying to make waves with their Ocean electric SUV. It's garnered a lot of hype and fans hoping that it hits the market as soon as possible. What's more interesting is that the entire vehicle was designed by someone who wasn't exactly new to the electric vehicle space either. With a beautiful view and a bright orange reserve button in the top corner, the Fisker website looks very promising, very pretty. In fact, you've probably heard the name Fisker before if you've been into the green car space. The founder of Fisker Automotive, the original company, was Hendrik Fisker, and he developed the Fisker Karma, which was this really strange plug-in hybrid sedan that came out in 2011. The company, unfortunately, went bankrupt, and despite making a rather interesting car, they had to sell all of their assets. A lot of their tooling and other things were purchased by a Chinese company, which is making its own new version of the Karma. They've rebranded as Karma Automotive, and they intend to bring to market this new version of the Karma, a sporty, all-electric sedan. So with that distinction made, let's get back to Fisker and start talking about their premier vehicle, the Fisker Ocean. The Fisker Ocean is an all-electric SUV. There have been a lot of bold promises from this company, and they've shown off interesting designs such as solar panels on the roof, which is actually something that the Fisker Karma way back in 2011 had it as well. It's pegged to be a stylish, comfortable, and surprisingly affordable SUV, with them claiming that the base price of the Fisker Ocean is $38,000, which will go all the way down to $30,000 with U.S. federal tax credits. And of course, they want to charge another fee to help milk out some money while not actually putting it directly on the MSRP. So it's a rather interesting vehicle, and it's being made by someone who isn't exactly brand new to the automotive space, although his previous company obviously went bankrupt. Is this going to be a successful product? Should I get in to this company right now? Because Fisker is a publicly traded company. Not too long ago, they actually used a special acquisition company to go public. And now they're sitting at a little over a $4 billion market cap. We've seen some pretty crazy jumps and falls in the share price, but honestly, that's not surprising because this is a speculative asset. They're not producing anything and they're not selling anything right now. So all of the purchasing is going to be based purely on future possibilities. I'd say looking at the vehicle, I do think there's a lot that is right with it. If they can actually meet that price threshold, I'll be pretty impressed because that is a very excellent price for an SUV, especially one that is all electric. Although there are some details that are kind of hazy right now and a lot of statements that have been retracted off the website. First off, I have to say that it makes a lot of sense going after the SUV market. The SUV market in the US has absolutely been exploding. We've seen consistent growth, constant purchases of SUVs. There have been a lot of manufacturers in the US that have stopped selling their subcompact cars. It's just hard to squeeze profit out of them when SUVs are such a hot market and in much higher demand, as well as healthier margins on that product typically. Now, as supply meets demand and more SUVs come out, that can change, but it is fairly clever going for that market. And Fisker has been pretty involved when it comes to trying to find a manufacturing partner, because as far as I understand, they don't have any in-house manufacturing. They did the design, and now they're trying to work with someone else to fabricate it. If you like this sort of content, I would highly appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want constant notifications, just click the little bell icon once you click subscribe. I deeply appreciate your viewership, so thank you for watching. And they are working pretty hard to try to build up some personality around the brand. They're selling merchandise and other things. They're accepting reservations and trying to make a name for themselves. And they did create a stylish-looking SUV. So I do think the product they are offering is compelling if they can actually meet all the specs that they mentioned previously, especially the price. However, there are a couple major concerns that I have about the company and that would put me on pause before I actually invest in it. The big point for me is that their first production is planned for Q4 of 2022. And they've actually flipped through manufacturers multiple times, and without a solid, proper manufacturer contract in place, that could easily slip. And keep in mind, this is just first production. When are we going to have scaled production? When are we going to have actual deliveries? More than likely, that's going to be in 2023, assuming they can keep this deadline. I think that is pretty far out. There are a lot of manufacturers desperately trying to get their EVs out, and while they might be less compelling than the big boy like Tesla, there are a lot of companies out there that are at least sort of trying. The Jaguar I-Pace, electric SUV. Audi e-tron, it's a sportback. The Porsche Taycan, which is actually Porsche's #1 selling vehicle that isn't an SUV. Volvo's getting in the game, and they actually have a dedicated brand as well. Polestar, which is also selling electric SUVs. Of course, we can't forget Volkswagen, which is getting involved with their ID.4. The Ford Mach-E, which created a lot of commotion by using the Mustang branding. The Kia Niro EV, showing that the Korean brands are not scared at all to start releasing more and more electric vehicles. Hyundai is also included in there. And the reality is, all of these are electric SUVs that you can currently purchase right now. They have EPA estimated range over 250 miles, base prices similar to the Ocean, and they're all available right now for purchase. If you just stop and think about what the market is going to look like in 2023 when we actually get deliveries and scaled production of the Ocean, it's likely going to be way more saturated and way more competitive. If it was a product coming out this year, it would be completely different, but this is years in the future till we actually get products produced, let alone released. And traditional auto manufacturers are really realizing that they can't just produce internal combustion engines. The future is going to be electric vehicles, and companies like Volkswagen are finally taking things pretty seriously and trying to present some sort of plan for how they want to scale to become an electric vehicle manufacturer exclusively. And I think there's another huge concern that simply involves full self-driving and automation. If you've been paying attention to the full self-driving rewrite, you'll see that Tesla has been making a staggering amount of progress. Their closed beta has seen some very interesting results, and they're continuing to expand and improve the software every single iteration. All it would take is a software update for all the Tesla vehicles on the road to have full self-driving, assuming they're able to actually get it in a complete working and acceptable order for the mass market. Now, Elon has definitely been wrong on his timelines before, but the progress we see from videos, as well as his bullishness this time, does really make me stop and think. In 2023, when the Fisker Ocean is actually available, are we going to have self-driving cars? Regulations can be tough in certain areas, but at the same time, there's a lot of US states that don't strictly prohibit the technology and would be far more open to it. Now, they do kind of market the Fisker Ocean as a rough and tumble SUV that's going to be used for adventures and other stuff like that. Maybe not as a crazy dedicated off-road Jeep, but something that you'll use in a situation where self-driving isn't applicable. But at the same time, these sorts of activities aren't exclusive to the Ocean. If Tesla actually does sort out this self-driving and autonomy for vehicles, cars like this are going to be a relic of the past, because it's not like they are old school internal combustion engines with a certain feel and aspect to them, right? It's not a classic car with a stick shift. It is a new age, connected electric SUV. So it's going to be competing directly with things like Teslas, where older vehicles might not really play in that same space or scratch that same itch. But ultimately, the biggest concern for me is the constant changes that Fisker Automotive has dealt with. I actually covered this company in the past, a couple months ago, and I read all sorts of stuff on their website. And as I went through and did this update video, seeing the progress they made, how things have changed, I was scared I had amnesia or something. I had to go back and watch my old video because so much stuff had gone missing. But Matt McCall's article here is actually pretty good at summarizing all of this. Fisker was talking about multiple preferred partners, and then all those partnerships fell through, so I guess they never signed a contract. They were constantly going through partners, and just because they say they have Foxconn secured, it might not work out like these previous two partners. And when you're trying to meet a deadline, not actually having someone who can manufacture something is pretty rough, especially because it takes a long time to get proper automotive manufacturing set up. They went public without selling a single vehicle or even having vehicles made, and the solid-state batteries was something in my previous video that I poked at a lot. At the time, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous because no one had come to market with solid-state batteries. Even the huge big players like Tesla were using lithium ion, and while Tesla had not had their battery day yet when I made that video, their future battery presentation showed that they were going to be focusing on lithium ion cells for the foreseeable future. And now Fisker is saying that solid-state batteries are at least 7 years out. And of course, the previous Fisker Automotive went bankrupt. And that happened because they didn't make their own batteries. Their battery supplier went under. And the reality is, with all these big manufacturers jumping into the space, I imagine more than likely, if you're not making your own batteries, you're not going to be selling a lot of EVs. There's going to be a huge demand for batteries in the future, at least batteries that are usable in an automobile. And there's a lot of talk about possible lithium shortages or nickel shortages. Tesla made a big deal at their battery day about these raw materials and how they are actively trying to get miners to get more and more of these prep. The demand for lithium ion, nickel, and other materials used in batteries is going to be huge in the coming years. So outsourced manufacturing that puts you in a vulnerable position that killed your last company, it's kind of concerning. And ultimately, that's my feeling on Fisker as a company. Their future has been pegged so far out, it's really hard to say anything significant. Yes, I think an SUV is a great product to start with, and the SUV they designed looks cool, looks nice at a comparable price, but it's so far out in the future that it's hard to actually have a proper examination of it. Because how do you examine and talk about something when we have these massive changes in the industry? When electric SUVs that are available in the current year are sort of comparable. When Fisker has a nasty habit of pulling things off their website because manufacturing didn't work out, or hey, we can't actually bring a solid-state battery to market because no one really has come up with any way to make one. I don't want the company to do bad, and it's possible they could make it in the market, but the reality is, I think they're going to be swallowed up by a lot of these bigger companies. These larger companies not only have more aggressive timelines, they have more intense execution. You can buy a lot of these electric vehicles right now. These are all for sale right now, and there are supply lines, manufacturing, all of this set up for these companies. And they're not that far off when it comes to specifications, at least promised specifications in the Ocean. So in a couple years, when you actually have mass production of the Ocean, it's going to be a completely different market. And again, Autonomy has just been making so much progress. I really do think that there is a non-trivial chance that we'll see full self-driving released to the public within the next 2 to 3 years. And it's not like you can just slap on that technology and have it be as comparable or as intense. There are some interesting open source initiatives to try to have attachable autonomy, but when it comes to a solution that is detailed, powerful, and accepted by regulators, it's not just something that you could duct tape onto your car. And of course, adding sensors, regardless of what they are, is going to increase costs, depending on the computational power they have in the car in order to actually process all this information and have a real-time operating system. They're going to need more chips, which are very expensive. You're going to need cooling solutions for those chips, more batteries to make sure they're powered. It just changes the whole dynamic. And while a company with a fairly small market cap in the electric vehicle space is exciting, personally, this isn't something I would invest in. And I think with their current timeline, they're just not going to be competitive when they actually reach mass production. I think there's far too many things on the path of execution that could axe them. And I think you're better off holding many of the other electric vehicle stocks over the long term. Obviously, with something this small of a market cap, it could spike up and down. Big time. But again, we're talking about 2023. You could try to play musical chairs with a stock. I mean, there were people that made money off Enron, but you need to understand how incredibly volatile and hectic a stock like this can actually be. So that's my input. That's my 2 cents. I hope this video helped you or at least brought this company to your attention. And best of luck in the market. If you're interested in investing in the market with self-directed trading, a fantastic way to start is with Webull. If you sign up now using my referral link in the description of this video, you'll get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,850. And these stocks are selected from companies like Facebook, Starbucks, Snap, Google, Procter, Gamble, and more. All the money in your account is yours to invest, trade, and withdraw as you please. There are 0 fees associated with depositing money. You just get your stocks and you'll get your buying power immediately. So if you want a fantastic brokerage with mobile, desktop, and web trading, just use the link in the description below.